The camera opens on a dimly lit apartment. A man in his early 30s, David, lies on the hard floor, his face tired but peaceful. Behind him, on his bed, sleeps a young woman, tears dried on her cheeks. A soft whisper echoes in the background. "I have nowhere to sleep." The screen freezes on that moment, and the narrator's voice cuts in. This isn't a love story. It's a story about kindness when the world had none to offer, and how one small act changed two lives forever. Fade into the beginning. It was a freezing night in November. Rain tapped on the windows like restless fingers, and the streets of Chicago were nearly empty, except for a girl who had nowhere left to go. Her name was Emily. 21, carrying nothing but a torn backpack and a heart full of broken promises. She had left home months ago, chasing a dream that had turned into a nightmare. Her roommate kicked her out that morning after a fight over rent she couldn't pay. By midnight, she was shivering under a bus stop, staring at her phone, scrolling through contacts she knew wouldn't answer. Her last text to her mother read, "I'm okay. Don't worry." She wasn't okay. The rain was soaking her hair when she saw the small cafe light still on at the corner of the street. Desperate for warmth, she pushed the door open. Inside, the aroma of coffee wrapped around her like a soft blanket. That's where she met him, David. David wasn't expecting company. He was a software developer working late, sipping coffee to fight sleep. When Emily walked in, drenched and trembling, he noticed. Everyone else just glanced and looked away. "Are you okay?" he asked, gently. Emily nodded quickly, lying like people do when they're used to surviving. "Yeah, just waiting for the rain to stop." But her shaking hands told another story. David hesitated, debating if he should push further. Something in her eyes, a mixture of fear and exhaustion, broke his hesitation. "You need a towel," he said, standing up. Without waiting for an answer, he grabbed some napkins, brought her a hot drink, and placed his jacket around her shoulders. She looked at him like no one had ever done that before. "Thank you," she whispered, almost afraid of the words leaving her mouth. Hours passed. The cafe closed. Emily stayed quiet, scrolling on her dead phone because she didn't have the courage to admit the truth: she had nowhere to go. David noticed her silence, and finally asked the question that shattered her pride. "Where are you heading?" Emily stared at the floor. Seconds felt like hours. Then, in the softest, most broken voice, she said, "I have nowhere to sleep." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. David felt a lump in his throat. In that moment, he knew, if he turned away, she might never make it through the night. He took a deep breath. "Come with me." Emily froze. "What?" "I'm not. I mean, you can take my bed. I'll sleep on the floor." "It's better than this." She stared at him, searching for a TR. David's apartment was small, one bedroom, barely enough space for two people. He offered her the bed like he promised, then laid a thin blanket on the floor for himself. Emily hesitated at the door of his room. I can't take your bed." "Yes, you can," he said, smiling. "Trust me, the floor and I are old friends." For the first time that night, Emily laughed, a sound fragile like glass but beautiful. She curled into the blanket, tears rolling silently as her body finally felt safe. She didn't know when she fell asleep, but for the first time in weeks, her dreams weren't nightmares. David stayed awake on the floor, staring at the ceiling. Something about her vulnerability shook him. She reminded him of his younger sister, who'd once been in trouble before he helped her rebuild her life. Maybe that's why he couldn't ignore Emily. The next morning, Emily woke up to the smell of coffee. David handed her a cup and said, "You don't have to explain. But if you want to talk, I'm here." And for the first time in months, Emily talked. About her broken dreams, her fight for independence, and how the world seemed colder than the Chicago streets. David listened, not to fix, not to judge, just listened. Days turned into weeks. Emily found a part-time job. David helped her with resumes, and soon she moved into her own small place. Before she left, she said something he'd never forget. "You gave me more than a bed. You gave me hope." Months later, Emily wrote an article online, "The Stranger Who Saved My Life." It went viral. People called David a hero, but he didn't see it that way. He just saw it as what humanity should be, one person caring enough to act when the world looks away.